My in-laws gave me a box of handwritten marriage tips for my birthday. One said, "Don't outshine your husband. It hurts his confidence." Another said, "Smile more. It makes you easier to tolerate." My husband said, "They're old school, just laugh." I didn't. I typed every one out, printed them on posters, and taped them around their front lawn the day of their church picnic. People took photos. Her face when she saw them? That's burned into my memory forever. I don't have a dramatic way to start this, but I do have a story. I'm 35 now. I've been married to Mark for 6 years. We live just outside Columbus, Ohio, in a quiet neighborhood where people still wave when they pass. We have no kids. We were trying a couple years back, but the trying just made the fights worse, and now we don't talk about it anymore. Mark's family is old school, and not in a warm, homespun kind of way. I'm talking strict gender roles, heavy church talk, and the kind of advice you'd find in a 1950s housewife manual. His parents, Harold and Nadine, are the type who think submission is godly and men are naturally stronger. I never had a close bond with them, but I tolerated the holiday dinners, the passive-aggressive jabs, the polite smiles. Until last year, on my birthday, we were at their house for dinner. Roast chicken, green bean casserole, and that damn dry pie Nadine insists is award-winning. After dinner, they brought out a box. It was small, wooden, hand-painted with my name on it in gold letters. I almost got emotional thinking maybe they actually tried to do something thoughtful. Nadine handed it to me with that tight-lipped smile she does when she thinks she's doing something generous. "We put this together for you. Little tips we've learned over our 40 years. Thought it might help." The first card said, "Never correct your husband in public. It makes you look bitter." I blinked, thinking it was just a weird one-off. The second one read, "Don't outshine your husband. It hurts his confidence." I looked up. Nadine was beaming like she'd just passed down the 10 Commandments. I flipped through a few more. "Keep yourself up. Men notice when you let yourself go. Don't talk too much about your job. It's not feminine. Smile more. You're easier to tolerate when you're happy." My jaw was locked. My stomach was twisting. Mark laughed.
"They're old school," he said.
"Just laugh. They mean well." I didn't laugh. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and closed the box, even as Nadine went on about how you'll thank us later. I went home that night, laid in bed, and stared at the ceiling while Mark snored next to me. I thought about every time she called me bossy for having a career, about the way Harold never looked me in the eye, about Mark's casual dismissal, like I was supposed to smile through it all. The next day, I opened every one of those notes. There were 49 in total. I typed each one up on my laptop. Not just typed, formatted. I used Canva to make them look like those cheesy inspirational posters you see in offices. "Be gentle with him. He works hard," with a photo of a lake. "A woman who argues is a woman who's alone," over a picture of a wilted rose. I printed all of them. Glossy paper, 11 by 17. I put them in a folder and waited. Because I knew the church picnic was coming up in June. It's their biggest event of the year. Potluck, music, lawn games, half the town shows up. And they host it right there on their big front lawn next to the church. I didn't say anything to Mark. Didn't hint. Didn't let anything slip. The night before the picnic, I told him I had to work late and would drive over in the morning.
He believed me.
Kissed me goodbye like nothing was wrong. I left the house at 4:30 a.m., drove to their place with a hoodie on, pulled into a side street, and walked the block with a roll of tape and a bag full of glossy marriage advice. It took me over an hour to get them all up. I taped them to the mailbox, to every tree on their lawn, to their white picket fence. I even slipped a couple under windshield wipers of parked cars on the street. I taped one right across their front door. When I was done, I sat in my car and waited. The sun came up. People started arriving. Families with coolers. Kids with folding chairs. Church ladies in big hats. At first, people laughed. Thought it was some kind of joke. Then they started reading them. "Don't challenge him when he's angry. Men can't help their tempers. Keep your voice soft. Nobody likes a loud woman. Cook before you complain. Phones came out. Photos were taken. At 8:50 a.m., Nadine stepped outside with a casserole dish in her hand. She didn't see the posters at first. Then she turned toward the driveway and froze. I'll never forget the way she looked, frozen, confused. Then her mouth opened like she wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Her hands were shaking. She dropped the dish. Harold came out behind her and saw it all. I don't think he understood what was happening, but he knew it was bad. He started pulling them down while people stood around, whispering. Mark called me at 9:15. I let it ring the first time. The second time I picked up. What the hell did you do? I gave them back their gift, I said. You embarrassed them. You embarrassed me. I didn't write any of it, I said. Your mother did. All I did was put it where people could read. You're trying to destroy this family. I'm trying to survive it. He hung up. I went home, slept like a baby. That night, someone posted a photo of the posters on Facebook. It got shared by people in 3 different towns. The church had to put out a statement. Mark didn't come home for 3 days. When he did, he barely looked at me. We didn't talk. Just existed in the same space. I moved out a week later. I moved in with my sister in Dayton. She cleared out her guest room for me and didn't ask questions the first few nights, which I appreciated. But eventually, she said what I'd been thinking too. Is this the end? Or just a break? I didn't know yet. Mark texted me once, maybe 4 days after I left. It said, You made your point.
Can we talk?
I didn't respond. Then came the letter. An actual handwritten letter in the mail, like we were in some old movie. 4 pages long. He said, he was sorry I felt hurt. Sorry I was offended.
Not sorry for laughing.
Not sorry for never standing up to his mom. Not sorry for letting her treat me like a burden for 6 years. He didn't get it. I didn't reply. But I did screenshot every single one of those posters I still had saved and email them to his church board. No subject. Just the images. I found out from a friend that Nadine and Harold were quietly asked to take a step back from leadership. They stopped showing up for a while. The pastor's wife unfriended me on Facebook. I counted that as a win. I thought that would be it. I thought I'd go back to work, maybe file for divorce quietly and move on. But then something happened. 3 weeks after I moved out, I got a call from Mark's cousin, Jenna. She was crying. Did you post those signs? She asked. Yes, I said, blunt as hell. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what that meant to me. Turns out, she grew up in that same house under those same rules. Her mom, Mark's aunt, had taken her own life when Jenna was 16. Everyone just said she was unstable. But now, Jenna was ready to talk. Your posters, they were word-for-word things my mom used to hear from them. That wasn't just a box of marriage advice. That was their manual. That's how they controlled people. We met for coffee. She showed me old photos, letters. She had stuff I didn't know about, stories from before I even met Mark, things that made my skin crawl. Apparently, Nadine had written a similar box for Jenna's mom when she married into the family. Jenna still had a few of the cards tucked in a Bible. One of them said, "It's your job to make him feel big, even when he makes you feel small." It was exactly the same handwriting. That's when I knew this wasn't just about me. This was a pattern, a legacy. So, I made a decision. If they wanted their wisdom passed down, fine. I'd help them. I posted a photo of the original box and some of the quotes to a local Reddit thread, under a throwaway account, of course. I titled it, "My in-laws gave me these for my birthday. Still think the good old days were good." It blew up. Thousands of upvotes. Hundreds of comments. People were outraged. People shared their own stories. Other women messaged me saying they got similar advice from in-laws, churches, even counselors. Some wanted to know if I had more posters. I did. I made them downloadable.
Free.
They started showing up in other towns. Taped to gas pumps, bulletin boards, college dorms. One even showed up in a protest sign in Texas. I didn't put it there, but I smiled when I saw it. And that's when Mark finally snapped. He showed up at my sister's place. Knocked on the door like he hadn't lost all credibility with me. I answered because I wanted to see his face. "You've taken it too far," he said. "No," I said. "I took it exactly as far as I needed to. You've ruined their lives."
"No. They did that themselves."
I just turned the lights on. He stood there for a while. He looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe he always was. "Do you want this to end in divorce?" "I don't want it to end in silence." He left without another word. But the silence didn't last. Because what I didn't know yet was that the family wasn't done fighting back. 2 days after Mark showed up at my sister's door, I got served a formal cease and desist letter from a lawyer, Harold and Nadine's. They were accusing me of defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and sabotage of religious events. I laughed when I read it. Actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. The language was stiff, legal, and completely missing the point. But what really got me was this line: "Our clients have suffered irreparable harm to their standing in the community due to the public display and distribution of maliciously edited family advice." Maliciously edited? I still had the box. The original cards. I had scanned each one before I made the posters. I had timestamps. I had proof. Still, it pissed me off that they'd try to rewrite the truth. I called a lawyer. A real one this time. Not a friend, not a favor, someone with teeth. Her name was Brenda, and she didn't flinch. "Let them sue," she said. "They won't win. You haven't lied. You've simply shared what was already given to you in their own handwriting." Then she paused. "But if you want to go one step further, I suggest we make this public." And that's what we did. We posted the original scans online. Every single card. With dates. With photos of the box. We even uploaded a copy of the cease and desist letter, redacted only for the address. I posted it all to the same Reddit thread under the same throwaway. It went viral again. This time, bigger. A journalist from a local outlet reached out. Then another. The church tried to issue another clarification, but they were too late. People were already talking about the family, about Nadine, about the quiet women in the background of every church photo, who had smiled, stayed quiet, and disappeared over time. Then one of those women came forward. Her name was Myra, and she'd been a friend of Jenna's mom. She emailed me directly. Her message was simple: "I've waited 20 years to say this. You're not crazy. They did this to all of us." She told me stories I'd never heard. About submission classes Nadine held in her own living room. About the time a woman got scolded for asking to go back to school. About another who tried to leave her marriage and was counseled back into it. It wasn't just a family thing.
It was a system.
Mark texted me again. "Please stop. You're turning this into a war." I stared at my phone for 10 minutes before replying. "You let them think I was the crazy one. You stood there while they chipped away at me, and you told me to laugh." Then I blocked him. And that's when the final twist hit. Jenna found an old journal. Her mother's. Hidden in a shoebox in her grandmother's attic. It had entries about Nadine. Notes from the so-called advice sessions. Descriptions of verbal abuse. One entry even described the exact moment Jenna's mom realized she wanted to leave, but felt like she couldn't. The last entry was dated 2 days before her death. It ended with, "If I leave, they'll say I failed. If I stay, I disappear." That entry broke me. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was truth-telling. And it was far from over. After Jenna gave me the journal, I didn't sleep for 2 nights. I kept rereading her mother's words. They were raw, scared, and honest in a way I hadn't expected. This wasn't a woman who couldn't handle life like the family always said. She was smart.
She saw what was happening.
She just didn't have a way out. And suddenly, this wasn't just about the stupid box of marriage tips. It was about what that box had stood for all these years. Silence.
Shame. Control.
I asked Jenna if she was okay with going public.
She said yes.
If it helps one other woman, it's worth it. So we did. We gave the journal to the reporter who had been following the story. She verified it, ran it with context, and published the piece under the headline, "The Legacy of Obedience: One Woman's Story, Another's Revenge." That article broke everything open. There was no more pretending. People in the church started whispering about the old days. Some women who had left the church years ago came forward too. One said Nadine told her she wasn't wife material because she had opinions. Another said Harold told her to submit harder when her husband got violent. The facade cracked. The pastor tried to save face but couldn't. The church held a reconciliation service, but it was empty. Nadine and Harold stopped showing up at all. I heard later that Harold tried to get reelected to the church board, but was turned down for the first time in 30 years. Mark, though, he didn't disappear. One night, he showed up at my sister's again. I didn't want to answer, but I did. Something in me needed to see what kind of man he really was when everything was stripped away. He looked tired.
Old.
Not in years, but in soul. Like he was finally seeing the cost of standing in silence all those years. "I lost my job," he said. "Someone sent the article to HR. They didn't fire me, but I got moved off my team. I'm being reevaluated. My name is Dirt." I nodded. "Maybe now you know what it felt like. Living in someone else's shame." He didn't cry, but his voice cracked. "I didn't write those cards." "No," I said, "but you handed them to me and told me to laugh." He nodded slowly, like he finally got it. I was weak. I didn't want to fight them. I didn't want to lose the only family I had. "You didn't lose them," I said. "You exposed them." We sat in silence for a few seconds. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "You're not getting it," I replied. He left without another word. A month later, I filed for divorce. He didn't fight it. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Not yet. Nadine sent me one last thing. A letter. No return address, but I knew it was her. The handwriting was the same as the cards. It said, "You've ruined everything. I hope you're proud." I burned it. Right there in my sister's kitchen sink. Watched the edges curl, then turn black. But that's not the last thing I remember. The last thing I remember is the next church picnic, 1 year later. I didn't go, obviously, but someone sent me a photo. There on the same lawn was a group of women, standing in a circle, holding signs. Not my posters, new ones. Their own words. One said, "I'm not here to be small." Another said, "My silence won't protect you." And right in the middle, Jenna held one that read, "Her story lives." That's when I knew I'd won. Not just against Nadine or Harold or even Mark, but against the system that tried to shrink me into something I never agreed to be. They gave me their wisdom. I gave them a spotlight. They never expected to be seen.
But now?
Now, they can't hide.